Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to today's web seminar. I'll be your moderator and your host. I'm very glad that you could join us. Our program today will feature several expert speakers who will cover our topic and get into some real-world details as well. Before we dive into that, I do want to take a moment to once again acknowledge and thank Mach7 Technologies for sponsoring today's program. We do appreciate their support. Our initial speaker today is going to be Eric Rice, Chief Technology Officer at Mach7 Technologies. Eric has been at Mach7 for quite some time, for about nearly 2 decades. He's been involved in evaluating and designing clinical informatics solutions for the healthcare industry with a particular focus on medical imaging workflow and interoperability solutions. We're fortunate to have Eric as our initial speaker today, and Eric later on in the program will be introducing a couple additional speakers who will provide some real-world perspective on this topic and who will be involved with Eric at the back end of our program answering questions from their audience. So with that, let's kick our program off. I'm going to turn it over to our initial speaker, Eric Rice at Mach7. Eric, the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much, Mike. And thank you all for joining our webinar today. We appreciate the opportunity. So today we're going to talk about enterprise imaging platforms and how they can help to support and grow and form your healthcare clinical ecosystem. And before I kick off into it too much, I'd like to define a few terms. First and foremost, let's talk about what an enterprise imaging platform is. At Mach7, when we talk about enterprise imaging platforms, we define it in terms of what most of us know. Most of us know what a PACS is. It's an acronym, Picture Archive Communication System. When we define enterprise imaging platform, we define it in terms of that A and C in PACS. A being the archive in the case of the enterprise imaging platform, that archive being a VNA, and often many VNAs have XDS repository and registry capabilities. Secondly, that C in PACS is also very important on a platform. The C bringing in the communication workflow, the ability for the platform to exchange data and share data and make it accessible through the communication of that data. From platforms, we are seeing many of our customers using them in many different ways. So from a specialty department and specialty workflow, leveraging a platform to enhance, for example, departmental workflows within radiology. It could be leveraging your platform, your VNA, to be the source of truth and to be the repository of data that is streaming data up to your enterprise viewers or your clinical viewer or even your day-to-day diagnostic viewers. We're seeing our customers leverage our platforms for sharing and access. How do we provide access to referring physicians and patients, and how do we enable them to better share and add fluidity to the data between sites and traditional boundaries between departments? Also off of the platform, leveraging the platform from an HIE perspective. Many of our customers span large regions and even countries, and how the platforms may be used as a health information exchange and leveraging a lot of those XDS capabilities to, again, enable the exchange of data across traditional enterprise boundaries. And lastly, around defining that enterprise imaging platform it's not just about the DICOM data within radiology and cardiology. It's also about those PDF documents coming out of radiology oncology, or the AVI video files from endoscopy, or the TIFF images from ophthalmology, or the JPEGs from wound care. There's many different formats that the platform, an enterprise imaging platform, should be able to support. With that definition in place, we talked to a lot of our customers about how they can leverage that platform to form their healthcare ecosystem. And when I talk about an ecosystem here, specifically around the clinical applications, around the clinical media that an institution, an enterprise, a healthcare system is dealing with. So from that clinical ecosystem, what are those specialty solutions? What are the diagnostic viewers or work list or reporting solutions that need to put in to gain access to or to send data to the platform or to be able to read data from the platform? From an enterprise perspective, which EMR do you have? Is it Epic or Cerner or Allscripts or whomever it may be? How do you image enable that EMR from from the platform? Or how do you provide broader access through clinical viewers to even referring physicians or patients, which gets into access and sharing, and even beyond that as well around into data analytics, from descriptive to prescriptive and predictive analytics. At Mach7, we talk a lot about getting that platform in place to really stabilize the data archiving and communication. And we ourselves have clinical applications, but we often coach our customers, really pick the applications that solve your business needs, that provide the best clinical capabilities so the specialists and the doctors can provide the best patient care. Sometimes customers pick our clinical applications, and sometimes they pick third parties, and we're happy with that, which gets into a little bit about what we'll jump into around some of the case studies in a bit. Moving on from that and building on that ecosystem a little bit, from a clinical ecosystem perspective, you certainly can go with a single vendor solution in some cases, but I have yet to find a single PACS or viewer or portal or sharing or reporting solution that will fulfill all specialties across all departments, within a facility. So no need to fit that square peg into a round hole. I think the idea here is how do we, again, stabilize within the platform, stabilize the archiving and communication of the data so that you can plug in those best-of-breed clinical applications that provide the best value back to your enterprise. So with that today, I am about to introduce a couple of partners and customers of ours here at Mach7 to talk through a couple of their case studies. Each of these individuals come from a couple of different healthcare enterprises. Their business models are very different, and they together or separately have both built their own unique ecosystems on top of our enterprise imaging platform. At this point, I'd like to introduce them. Chris Drummond is the CIO from Capital Radiology in Australia, and Brian White is a PACS administrator from YUMA Regional Medical Center in Arizona. And before I go too far, I would like to take a moment of time, and Chris, if I could ask you first, if you could explain a little bit or describe a little bit about the business that you are running today at Capital Radiology.
Sure. So Capital Radiology has been an acquisition private radiology company throughout 2 states in Australia. So we're in Victoria and New South Wales. We're currently running in 72 private radiology clinics. We currently scan about 1.3 to 1.5 million patients per year. And the acquisitions will continue within Capital Radiology. So having a flexible environment has been the key for us, and moving forward, we will be needing a flexible environment to really build upon the multiple RIS and PACS systems that we have.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. And Brian, if you could, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about YUMA Regional Medical Center.
Hello. YUMA Regional Medical Center is basically a 400-bed not-for-profit hospital. We reside in YUMA, located between San Diego and Phoenix. We have various doctor's offices, urgent cares, cancer centers that are around us. We are currently expanding. We are in the middle, actually finishing implementing an enterprise imaging platform.
Very good. Thanks, Brian. I think YUMA at times is the hottest place on earth as well.
Very much so.
All right. With that, to kick off a few things, I know from our own experience with both Capital Radiology and at YUMA, there have been very similar goals, but there's also been some differences. We're talking about, as just described by Chris and Brian, the business models are much different. Chris is operating a number of imaging centers. There's a lot of mergers and acquisitions. Their focus is on radiology, outpatient radiology imaging, whereas YUMA is multimodality, more than just radiology, many specialties, more of a traditional medical center scene. Some of the goals I've highlighted here, and around, for instance, Capital Radiology wanting a enterprise diagnostic viewer and a universal work list and a centralized modality work list and patient portal. I wonder first, Chris, I wonder if you could highlight, in your environment, Chris, where you have done a lot of mergers and acquisitions. From that, there's many different PACS systems you're dealing with. I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit on some of the goals and how you see some of these goals helping out day to day, both for your physicians and for your patients.
Sure. So as you alluded to, Eric, we currently have 5 different PACS systems in operation, which makes sharing work between our various clinics quite difficult. So as you'd appreciate, radiologists are a important resource and one that you need to keep as productive as possible. So for us to have a central environment where we can ensure all the radiologists can see all work across our business, it really improves the ability for us to get the turnaround times for our referring doctors to where we'd like them to be. The other advantage is we've got, say, 5 million legacy studies from these various PACS systems migrated into the Mach7 environment, which also allows our referring physician to basically all now require images online. It allows us to give them not only the images they've referred in the last week or today, but also allows them to see the history, the complete history for the patient that's been to any one of our imaging centres.
Yeah, very good. And I'm sure, too, in a distributed environment, I'm sure there's a lot of subspecialty reads going on as well, Chris, and the need to distribute that to the subspecialists exactly where they are and so forth. I'd assume
that's right.
Work list helping out quite a bit with that.
That's right. So one area we've been focusing on recently is we've got a very big spread of radiologists that have a lot of subspecialties. So we've got NSJ specialists and also abdo specialists and neuro specialists spread out across the country. So to be able to use something like the universal work list, which we're implementing at the moment, to easily create work lists for these subspecialist radiologists, that ensures that we get, again, the best productivity and the best results for our patient to ensure that the work is distributed to the correct radiologist.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris. Brian, on the YUMA side, I know YUMA was finding itself with the PACS that had gone in life, and physicians were looking for some improved system performance, and similar around universal work lists and the ability to more accurately and have more control over load balancing across your physicians and so forth. I wonder if you could highlight some of those core goals that there were and is at YUMA.
Absolutely. We've had a legacy PACS system that was installed in 1999, so it was ending life, and so we decided that we would start looking for a new system. Plus, since we were adding so many modalities, the system couldn't handle the amount of studies that we were putting in. So that was one of the major reasons for looking at a VNA or a new ecosystem for our facility. We have a radiologist group that reads for us, so they are out of Phoenix, and they do a lot of back and forth, so we needed a work list that we could end up passing our specialty reads to from here to there. We ended up doing our EHR in 2012 and had difficulties with image enablement for that, so that was one of our goals stepping forward. And we have many doctor's offices here that do their own x-rays and imaging, and what we wanted to do was be able to have them share their images with us and us with them. So that was one of the major points that we wanted to address.
Perfect. Very good. Thank you, Brian. With those goals, I think it's interesting to point out that, from a clinical business perspective, there wasn't an explicit goal to go and find a VNA. There wasn't an explicit goal to go and find a platform, an enterprise imaging platform, although there are certainly business benefits for a platform and saving storage costs and so forth. But I think it's important to note that the value of the platform is really in support of that broader ecosystem. The value of the platform is how we can take a platform and really standardize the storage, provide advanced capabilities across the storage and the communication exchange and sharing of that data so that both Brian and Chris and both of their enterprises can go and meet those clinical needs. They can plug in those clinical applications, which we'll dig into in another slide, that really support their goals and their vision. So one thing on this slide, I want to talk a little bit about the platform itself and considerations that both you, Chris, and Brian had. I think I've heard from both of you at different times, but I think standards-based, having a platform that is standards-based gives you the ability to have ownership and control with the right ability to configure the system and kind of handing over the keys to you so you can have that control. The ability to integrate with viewers and so forth was all important. But I think I'll go back to you first, Chris. When you were looking at a platform to support those front-end clinical and business goals, what were some of those key differentiators on the platform that really gave you the value you needed?
Yeah, the big one for me and our business, Eric, was flexibility, really. We needed a platform that, as we continue to acquire and run into additional systems, that we know that we can utilize the enterprise imaging platform to plug these systems in immediately and not have to wait months and months to migrate them over to a single PACS or a single RIS system. We can plug them in to our existing environment and migrate the data if need be, if not just access that data. But it wouldn't limit us in terms of utilising the resources that we have at our disposal by having to wait to migrate these systems into a single PACS or RIS.
Very good. Actually, to build on that point too, I know I've heard from other customers as well that even having that future flexibility. So today you're picking your best-of-breed ecosystem, but who's to say in 5 years, a doctor from your facility doesn't go to RSNA and find a new viewer that does something great for their subspecialty and, be able to plug those in the future as well, into that stabilized back-end platform for archive data and communication. So I want to highlight that. Also, too, Brian, is there, from a platform and the considerations that yourself and YUMA made around a selecting of a platform, what were some of those key capabilities that brought you the value you needed?
Well, the ability for communication, for sure. We're looking at cardiology, long-term with pathology and all the other ologies, bringing them into one location, being able to share those across. The control, absolutely, being able to set up your own routes, your own rules, making sure that you control the system and know what's going on where. That was a major piece of that.
Great. Perfect. All right. With that, I'm going to jump into the next slide here and talk about, actually going back to you, Brian, and talking about really the ecosystem that you have realized and you have created, off of your enterprise imaging platform. And you can see here for those attending right now, you can see off of that platform there are many different front-end vendors, different clinical applications that Brian and his team and his organization have plugged in to form their best-of-breed workflow and so forth. Without going into it too deep on my side, Brian, do you want anything to highlight around your ecosystem? Anything you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, it was just to point out, we did 2 separate data centers, which made it very nice for the load balancing and access. So we separated basically 2 failover systems, and then we were able to attach, our workflow manager, different 3D rendering, our different applications that all touch PowerScribe, and also it works out really well. We've had our soft go live for a week now, basically, so everything's working well.
All right, great. Looks good. It's good to see it all in live action. So it's similar question to you, Chris. I know Chris at Capital, somewhat of a similar capabilities and ecosystem, although obviously focused more in the radiology space and a lot of those specialty apps, but applications. But could you highlight, or do you have anything you'd like to highlight around the ecosystem you came up and the solutions selected and so forth?
Yeah, sure. One of the important considerations for the Australian market is the ability to compress and route images because of our very limited bandwidth here. Just to give you an idea, the average link speed across our network due to extreme costs of bandwidth in Australia is about 10 megabits between each of our reporting clinics. So as you can well imagine, pushing around or opening on the fly 3,000 slice CT from a remote location isn't exactly what you want your radiologist to be waiting for to load up some of the traditional PACS systems. So one of the really important considerations for us, taking into account our architecture and infrastructure, was the ability to really build some robust routing and compression rules to ensure we're sending the correct data to the correct location based on radiologist availability. So it's not really highlighted in that diagram, but that's a really important consideration for us.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. So I think with that, I think we have talked about today. We have talked about defining what an enterprise imaging platform is and how that can be used to help support your best-of-breed ecosystems. And with that, Brian and Chris have both shared quite a bit about their goals and how the platform has helped them in creating that ecosystem and what their ecosystems look like. At this time, I wonder if we can take a few questions, and actually I'll look at the questions that have come in. And let's see here. One question that came in, and I wonder, actually I can maybe take the first stab at this, and then maybe, Brian, maybe you can support me on this one. But one question is, when you're dealing with a healthcare ecosystem and a number of different vendors, what have you done to make sure all the vendors play nice together? What have you done what have you done to make sure that they're not going to be pointing fingers? I know being one of those vendors in the mix, I know at YUMA at least, there is quite a bit of effort around the service level agreement and having a joint service level agreement that the vendors across the ecosystem would agree to jointly, and with that, define the ways of being able to communicate with one another of those vendors. So, I don't know, Brian, if you want to, is there anything to add to that maybe?
No, I think you got it all there.
Okay. Very good. Let's see. Here's another one. What would you say is the highest challenge facing enterprise imaging, and how does Mach7 meet those challenges? Biggest. It's a good question. The biggest challenge, I think, archiving is one piece. When I talk about, us Mach7 as being a vendor, delivering an enterprise imaging platform, Archiving, it's a core capability that we do, but I'll tell you the biggest challenges I think that we generally face are really around the workflow and communication and exchange of data. And I think with our platform, that is why we spend a lot of R&D and a lot of investment in taking that platform and making it simple to develop those workflows. Being able to develop workflows in our, workflows with outside imaging data, for instance, in the matter of an hour that, traditionally may have taken a 6-month implementation cycle. So I think, the workflow, communication, exchange, sharing components is a challenge I think we have met and continue to expand upon. Let's see, another question here. So here's a question, and actually it could go to Chris and or Brian, but there's a question about, in general around, going more of a PACS-less environment. Chris and Brian, I wonder if either of you could speak to, why you're looking at that enterprise diagnostic viewer and universal work list, and why you think that was the right solution, the right clinical applications for your environments, compared to just going out and buying a traditional PACS. Chris, do you want to take that first, or?
Yeah, sure. So the real benefits for us, as I kind of alluded to earlier, was flexibility and being able to decide on an image viewer at the moment to suit the business requirements. But as those business requirements change, we have an easy ability to change out that viewer or add additional viewers based on subspecialty reporting. So we're currently using the eUnity zero footprint viewer, which have recently released their diagnostic version for radiologists with multi-monitor support and display protocols and that sort of thing. So we're going down that path at the moment. It's proved to be quite robust. Our first sites are in action with that viewer. But as I mentioned, the ability to go and change that viewer as required using the Mach7 platform is really what's appealing in that area.
Yeah, good. Actually, I think that was well stated. Brian, I don't know if there's anything you want to add?
No, that's good.
Okay. Actually, Chris, as a follow-up to that, actually, there's a question here around compression, and you did raise the one of the benefits of having the platform and the gateways to communicate across a WAN. There's questions around if you experience any issues around different compressions and having those maybe limit accessibility and viewers and things like that.
To be honest, so far so good. No issues with compression. So we are compressing everything we send across the low bandwidth network, but there has not been any issues to report in terms of image accessibility or display issues due to that compression.
Yep. And actually, there's kind of a follow-up on that around the compression amount. And I may be able to answer this for you, but I think we're doing around a 2.2 or 2.4x, something like that.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it's around just over 2. That's right.
Okay. All right. Another question. How about we'll take a couple more questions. So here's a question. Image-empowered. So Mach7's white paper says an image-empowered enterprise promotes collaboration among specialists and reduce costs. How would you say it does this? I think the biggest thing around promotes collaboration among specialists. I think it does this in many ways. A lot of our customers again leverage the platform to better enable the communication exchange of data, whether it be communicating, exchanging data from outside, or even internally. How do we make sure? For instance, we talked a little bit with Chris earlier about how we can load balance the right subspecialty cases to the right specialist at the right site and the right viewer to make sure that they have access to the data they need. Along with that too, I think, what was the second part of the question? On reduce costs. I think along with that too, around the reducing cost piece, certainly with the platform, as we just talked about around compression, you're going to get a lot more capabilities around, a lot more options around compressing data, also around lifecycle management. It may not just be about compression or purging, but it may be about moving between tiers of storage. It may be about being creative about what you purge. Maybe you don't purge an entire 1,000-slice CT, but you purge just the thin slices after 5 years, but you keep the thin slices in the secondary capture. So I think, with an enterprise imaging platform, you get a lot more capabilities, again, around that communication exchange and sharing, knowing where the data needs to go, but beyond that too, on the archiving side, around helping to reduce storage costs and things like that. All right, now how about we take one more question. Is there a lot of custom work by Mach7 required to intake non-DICOM data and route to viewers? I think that's a great question. Around non-DICOM, obviously you can't rely on a standard like DICOM to communicate it. So actually at Mach7 we have a few different ways we handle non-DICOM. One, we do have a zero footprint clinical application that works in a browser that enables front-end clinicians to drag and drop and associate those non-DICOM data, artifacts, images, media to a patient and visit or encounter. Often outside of the DICOM world, there's no such thing as an accession number or order. So we can do it through that front-end zero footprint browser. Secondly, we have the ability to pull folder locations. So there are some modalities and some non-DICOM specialties where we can pull folder locations and we can automatically grab the data and automatically associate it to the right patient and visit or encounter again. Thirdly, we have the ability to use mobile devices, which actually we have recently received a patent on around some mobile device workflows where a physician can log in and, like a CT technologist or radiographer, select the patient and visit on the mobile device, capture a picture, capture a video, take notes, do voice recognition, all those kind of things, and have it flow into the back-end platform. And fourthly, we do support XDS, so we are an XDS source. We're an XDS repository and registry in the platform natively. And so if there are XDS sources, they can send into our platform that way. And lastly, we do have an open API as well that a number of vendors have implemented that enable them to send in non-DICOM. So, all right. So with that, I think, Mike, I'd like to hand it back to you. And I appreciate and thank everyone that's joined the webinar today. And again, Chris and Brian, both, thank you very much for your participation and sharing your case studies at each of your enterprises.
No problem.
Okay, very good. Eric, thank you very much. And Brian and Chris, thank you also again very much for participating in this program. We're glad that you were able to share a lot of your insights of your particular deployments and the benefits that you were able to achieve with this solution. I want to once again thank and acknowledge Mach7 Technologies for sponsoring this program. Once again, we really appreciate their support. And last and certainly not least, we want to thank all of you in the audience for participating in today's program. We're glad that you could spend a little bit of your day with us, and we hope that you'll join us for a future web seminar brought to you by Health Data Management and its sponsors. Thank you again, everybody. I'm Mike Perkowski, your host and moderator. Hope you all have a great day. Take care.